Joining me now is Sean Spicer. He's the Chief Strategist and Communications Director for the Republican National Committee. Sean, as things stand now, it would appear that Donald Trump will be dead center of that stage next Thursday, flanked by Jeb Bush and Scott Walker, with the outer flanks yet to be determined. Is that a fair way to sum it up?
Yes, that seems to be the case, but we still have a little ways to go.
So Tuesday at 5 p.m. is the cutoff for the polls that will be used to determine who the participants will be?
That's right. That's what Fox has announced the cutoff will be, yes.
Does the RNC know on which 5 polls Fox will rely?
No, Fox has said that they'll use the latest 5 nationals that meet their standards. My understanding is they'll announce those, what their criteria is, but there are people that are constantly out there polling, and I think what Fox wants to do is ensure that they've got the latest polls that have been completed to ensure that if anyone's surging one way or the other, that the top 10 and the bottom 6 are the most representative of the polls that have been most recently completed.
But doesn't the RNC then worry that it has ceded control for this first and important debate to television executives at Fox?
Well, I mean, the law is very clear on this, that the RNC cannot, nor can any political organization, actually set the criteria or the format. The RNC can be involved in sanctioning the debate, but when it comes to the format and the criteria, the law is very clear.
I guess the concern that I'm expressing is one of polls come to different conclusions, and maybe someone can say, Rick Perry, he's pretty good TV. He had that oops moment last cycle. We want to make sure he's on the stage where he's neck and neck with Governor Kasich. Maybe we go for a poll that shows Perry running ahead of Kasich. How do you prevent against that?
Well, I mean, the first thing I would say, and this is true for both the case of Fox and CNN, look, we right now this cycle suffer from an abundance of riches. We've got 16, 17 candidates of great stature. In past cycles, Michael, I mean, there would have been a lot of people that would have been left off, completely silenced because they're not even hitting the 1% threshold. So in the case of both Fox and CNN, I think that we should actually, to some degree, focus on how inclusive this process has been.
Well, and maybe, by the way, I'll have the same criticism when we get to the CNN debate, which is next month in September 16. And you can come back and I'll promise you can make all these same observations. But right now, money for ads is being spent on Fox News, and I've got a tally, which I can put on the screen, of just how many appearances the candidates have made on Fox alone. It's staggering, and I guess I'm wondering if in the big picture, the role that was once played by Iowa, the role that was once played by New Hampshire, is now being played by one media outlet. And frankly, Roger Ailes a long time ago said that there'd come a day when television would supplant the role of the party, and I wonder if that day is today.
No, I mean, at the end of the day, that they're still using polls. They're not choosing these people in the same way that CNN and every other network is going to use some mechanism of polling to say who are the people that meet the criteria to get in this debate. Fox is doing the same thing. I mean, so they're not choosing anybody.
One other observation, if I might. Jackie Calmes, who is a national correspondent for the New York Times, just wrote a paper for the Kennedy School at Harvard University, and it's a detailed report. It's really an academic paper, but I want to show Sean Spicer just one statement from it and ask you to react. She wrote, "Conservative media have helped push the party so far to the anti-government, anti-compromise ideological right, attacks Republican leaders for taking the smallest step toward the moderate middle." Do you worry that so much emphasis on Fox's role in this first debate has that unintended effect? It pushes the candidates to a rightward position that becomes untenable in a general election.
No, not at all. In fact, I think that with all due respect to Jackie and to Harvard and the New York Times, where she writes, I mean, I think that the problem is that for so long that the left-wing mainstream media has taken people to the left and only focused us on issues that, a lot of conservative activists and Republican voters haven't cared about, that there's sort of a shockwave through a lot of the mainstream media when they recognize how the issues and the concerns that conservative media are bringing don't go covered. You look at this recent, Planned Parenthood scandal. It's the conservative media that's out there bringing that scandal to light. and to share the concerns that are coming out. If left up to the New York Times and the rest of the mainstream media, it would get swept under the rug.
But if you go back and you look at what happened 4 years ago, you see Governor Romney running as someone who, frankly, didn't reflect the record that he had as a governor of Massachusetts. Maybe if he had been, the real Mitt Romney, he'd had a tough time in primary season, but he'd have been a stronger general election candidate. I think that's the kind of tension that she's commenting on in this paper.
I think our party is doing just fine. Our candidates are doing just great, and I think that there's a little bit of concern in the mainstream media when you look at the market share that a lot of these newspapers have. They're losing, and I think that what happens is you see the growth of conservative media and I think it's worrisome, frankly, to a lot of people in the mainstream media when they realize that it's a dying medium, and they get concerned that conservative media is getting the attention and the issues that they once covered. They don't get to set the agenda anymore.
A final question, if I might, on the Donald. Thus far, as of right now, has he been a positive or negative influence on the GOP process?
Well, look, I think when we have 16 candidates that kind of are all over the spectrum on a lot of things, it's good for the party. And the reason I say that is at the end of the day, the more people that are paying attention, the more people that are involved in this process, it's good for the party. It brings more eyeballs. It brings more attention to the race. At the end of the day, whether it's Donald Trump, Ben Carson, Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, Jeb Bush, all of these people are bringing more and more people into the Republican Party, and some of them come from different perspectives, and it makes our party, at the end of the day, much, much stronger as we head into a general election.
I will say this. I can't remember a first out-of-the-chute debate, in August, for crying out loud, that has the kind of interest building around this one. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Michael. You bet.